Hi, welcome back to Ways to Love Your Money. I'm Elisabeth Dawson, and I'm so glad that we have our next guest. He's a very special person to me, and this gentleman was actually in corporate America at one point, but now he is actually working in the ministry, which this is where I know this man from. So without further ado, this is Pastor Erik Dees, and he is with Journey Community Church, and we're so glad and grateful that he's here. And I really want him to tell us a little bit about his journey to get to this point, no pun intended. But it's been a journey. You've had a lot of life experience,
Yes.
and share with us what you want to share. But at what point, when you started your working life career, you were heavily involved with Walmart, but I don't know to what degree. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a blue-collar home, really didn't have intentions necessarily of going in ministry and really even into like corporate work necessarily. I grew up in northern Colorado, and in my growing up years, I happened to land a job at one of Walmart's logistics facilities. They've got these great big distribution centers, got this huge logistics network. And I was just a young kid, and I landed this really good job. It was that or the military. I wasn't sure where I was going to go with my life, so I ended up getting on board with Walmart as this kid and just started working really hard. And I grew up in a home where work ethic was a high value. That's one thing I learned quite a bit growing up, is just how to work hard. And so that work ethic was really helpful. Anyway, that led to this journey through really the logistics network of Walmart. I worked in a few of their warehouses, ultimately found a niche in training and development with people, with working with leadership. And ended up discovering a passion for leadership development, and they ended up bringing me to corporate offices in early 2000s out of one of their warehouses. And so that led to, I did a lot of different things in their corporate offices in the logistics division. I ended up doing a stint I wrote curriculum for them. I did studio broadcast. I did a lot of studio work, so this kind of stuff I enjoy.
Yeah.
We would write curriculum, and then we would broadcast it across the nation to our facilities across the nation to train our leaders. So did a lot of that, and that was the path of my life. And my intention was to finish a long career with Walmart. It was a great company for me. My experiences were very positive. They taught me how to work. They taught me how to lead. They taught me about organizational dynamics, expense control. I know that's right up your alley. I really learned expense control management in a corporate setting and in a business setting, the value of that. I had no intention necessarily of going into ministry. I found my faith in my early 20s. I was just a typical young guy doing career work stuff and lots of ambition and desire, but lacking a lot of direction. And through a series of experiences, he had a very powerful encounter with God, and that encounter spiritually just redirected the course of my life. Not necessarily into ministry, but the way that I dealt with life. The grid in my life changed, just sort of unlearning some things and started relearning a new way of thinking about life. And that infiltrated a lot of how I thought about work. And ultimately, I was engaged to my now wife at the time, Christy, and we were, right before we got married, we had a conversation, and my plan was to finish my career at about 20 to 25, maybe 30 years. Okay. And I wanted to really launch a consulting kind of business. I wanted to do leadership training. I wanted to do stuff for working with organizations. That was my dream. And I wrote up this great business plan. I had it all mapped out. And I was in this conversation with my wife, or wife-to-be at the time. And we just wrestled back and forth I was like, I just felt unsettled with my plan. Didn't feel right. And I didn't know what it was. And my wife said, Erik, have you ever thought about pastoral work? I'm like, no, I had zero interest in working in the church. I was a part of the church. I've always been involved as a busy employee. I had a lot of work outside of the church, but then I was a volunteer for years. And then I ended up my wife said that to me, or the wife-to-be at the time said that to me, and it arrested my attention. And I said no initially, and then began to ponder, I don't know, maybe. And then just through some prayer and some contemplation, months later, I really recognized that the way I was going about my plan was not necessarily the purpose or purpose of my life at that time. So redirected and went back to school, went back and got a theology degree, and ended up completely starting over in a ministry. I moved to Iowa a couple of years later and started work in a small church.
Oh, wow.
And then, that's moved around the country. Been in full-time ministry almost 10 years, just shy of 10 years now.
So that's quite a magnificent journey, really. And Christy, your wife, which I'd love to have her here on the show, but I think she's in Europe right now,
She
right?
is walking the El Camino in Spain right now.
Oh,
actually.
wow.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is an experience all in itself. But finding your way, and I have a 20-year-old son that I think he's exactly on that path of pondering. He's in college right now, but then, does he go into the military? What does he do when he gets after it? And there's so much to consider. So what I have noticed with people that I've talked to that have basically led their life to success, even transferred, to a different, path or career, that along the way, there's been mentors involved. And I would almost consider you now, even in your pastoral life, that you're a mentor to so many. And being the executive pastor, which is, a little different, the structure of the church is a little different, right? So you're not the one that's speaking on Sunday, it's Pastor Ed Noble. And but what you do is you kind of are this arms around the church, and you're around with all, everyone there. And your approach is very calm. It's very peaceful. It's very welcoming. Wherein sometimes in the past, and people would not be so welcoming to someone of let's say authority.
Right.
But I think that even in your leadership that you've done throughout your career life when you were with Walmart until now it's even in a bigger leadership role.
Yeah.
Do you feel that has been something that's grounded you and kind of created that part of your your life path at this point?
Yeah, I think so. I think I think my faith informs the soul peace. I would say peace on the inside. It's shaped through my faith. I think I think most people would probably agree that you can attain a lot in life, and finances and achievement and accomplishment, but you can't buy peace. You can never buy peace, and peace is the kind of peace that the Bible describes is the peace I always wanted my whole life. I grew up very restless on the inside and longed for peace. And I think that the peace I always sought is really found in a relationship with God. And that is the grounding anchor and filter for life for me, through which I counsel or we lead our church organization or encourage other people's lives from this place of peace. So I'm honored that you'd say that, because that really has been my heart's desire, is to live from peace, the kind of peace that God gives.
Sometimes we don't always get it the way we want it.
Not necessarily. That's very true.
But it comes in its way.
Yeah, right.
Now, I know that you do work also with charitable organizations and things, and we've actually given to the homeless, the food bank and things like that, and just so much more involved in the community. And where do your heartstrings go? What kind of charitable part of the ministry? Where does that go?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really I'm very proud of a couple times a week, we are a major food distribution site. So we feed hundreds of people regularly throughout the week at our site. We have a food bank on site at the church, and I'm very proud of that. I just love that. We've got volunteers who work very, very hard. We're always looking for more volunteers, actually. We're short sometimes on volunteers because there's a lot of lifting, and we've got a couple of people in there that there's some physical limitations, so we're always looking for help in the food bank. But it's a great ministry. We every week, I think twice a week is our current schedule. A couple times during the week, you would come by and you could see a line of people getting fed every week, people who don't have, who just can't, for whatever life circumstances, aren't able to eat, and we're able to provide that. I love that. We also have a thrift store on our campus that is very well ran. Very proud of our thrift store too. All of the proceeds from our thrift store, they pay for their own operation costs, but then anything above operational costs, we fund global missions work through our thrift store.
Okay.
So we've done some work in Haiti, we've done some work in Swaziland, and a lot of that funding is driven by the quality of our thrift store.
That's pretty amazing. I know there's a coffee shop there too.
There is, yeah.
And that gets run on the weekends, and it's a pretty popular place to be. And it is quite a community,
Yes.
church. I mean, when you say community church, it is something
It
like
is
that.
indeed, yes.
But you do reach so many people's lives, and there's such a different walk of life that walks through those doors, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, I think you probably feel more fulfilled than ever most
Yes.
days. So,
Yeah, I think so.
and I know that you recently had a grandbaby.
I did. Yes.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about that grandbaby.
Yeah. So our daughter, who is 24, just had a baby in June in Iowa. His name is Brecken. So he's about 4 months or so, 4 or 5 months old now,
Yes.
and that was quite an experience.
Yes.
Becoming a grandparent, and I actually became a grandparent twice because my daughter married a young man with a little guy already, so we inherited a guy from the beginning. So my wife and I became grandparents instantly, and then did again about a year later. So that's been quite a journey for us. Life seasons change, and you move from the role of parenting, parenting to like stepping back and watching your child parent. That's an interesting season of life, unexpected.
And I know when we first talked about you being a part of the show, Ways to Love Your Money, you're like, well, I don't really work that way
Right,
anymore,
right, exactly.
because it is really about how do we kind of create ways to love our money, but in the sense of how can we give back, right?
Right.
And we're such a faith-based organization as well as giving back to charities, giving back
love
to
that.
tithe, all
Yes.
those different pieces, and it's a big part of our business where
Yeah.
our entire team gets involved, which I love that part, and I feel very fortunate that I have such an incredible team that gets me there, and gets us all there to that point, but. I love that that's even another part where within the church there's businesses within the church that are creating that
Yes.
revenue stream to be able to do things to
Yes.
support even more, let's say charitable organizations or outreach or just people in need. And
Yeah.
I think that's powerful today.
Yeah.
It doesn't ever stop.
Right. Yeah.
And then I know that there's a little fun fact. We always like to talk about a little bit of a fun fact. So way back when you were on a show.
I was.
So tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
that
that's
show
fun,
that you were on.
Yeah, one of the funnest days of my life was being on The Price is Right in 2009. My wife is the adventurous one,
Yes.
and I'm the little more serious one, is what she would say. But she had an idea. We were passing through San Diego, actually. We weren't living here at the time. And my wife said, hey, we should go through LA, and we were taking a cruise, I think, out of LA at the time. And she's like, why don't we try to get on The Price is Right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, I get too much to do, a lot going on. I don't have time for that. And my wife has this fun, sanguine personality, and finally she convinced me to get up. You have to get up at like 5 or 6 in the morning to go down and wait in line to get tickets and so on and so forth. So I agreed to do it reluctantly at first, and I was like, we're too busy, but ended up going along and went down there. And then the process is you're waiting in line, and I read all night about it. I was like, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna try to get on. So we ended up, you're with hundreds of people, and the producers are interviewing. They're walking down the rope line, and they're meeting potential contestants. And I don't know what happened. I don't know why they picked me. Honestly, I really don't know. But I was having fun, and I have a little bit of a fun spirit. And I guess maybe that came through. And so I was on in 2009, and it was a blast. I mean, the most fun I've had. It was one of the funnest days of my life. Most fun
Really?
days, yeah.
Oh
It was a
my
great
gosh.
time. So anyway, I got on the bidders row.
You did?
I got the coveted last seat on bidders row, which everybody's bids. So you just got to go over or under depending on what you think the bid was. So I won this incredible home gym, like a really expensive home gym. And I was living in Iowa at the time, so it was great because the winters and stuff in Iowa.
Sure.
So that was really fun. And then I lost pretty bad on the second game, so I didn't get to go very far. But an ironic fact is that in our little church where we lived in Iowa at the time, myself and another gal in the church, 2 people out of this church of 100 people were both on The Price is Right within about a 2-year period. It was crazy. She actually won the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was a little jealous of that. She won everything. Yeah, she won like multiple trips.
So do you still have that gym set today?
I actually sold it about 2 years ago when I moved into my house currently because I couldn't keep it anymore.
Couldn't keep it anymore.
Yeah. So I ended up selling it, and but had a great run with it. So.
Well, I always love that because it just is the
was
real
fun.
part of people, right?
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, we had a great time.
Now, just to ask you one last question, as far as financial wisdom that you would give to anyone out there, obviously we talk about a lot of respect for money because we're so fortunate and
Right.
blessed to be able to be given what we have.
Yeah.
We work hard for it, but at the same time to be mindful of that.
Right.
So I know that you reach out to a lot of young people as well, which is great. And I know you do that through your wife quite often. And but you're also a great counselor for people too. So if you have any words of wisdom, we'd love to hear them. We can cut it short, whatever you want. But ultimately, if you had any words of wisdom, what would you tell people out there that are looking closer? Well, they might be in the middle of their career. They might be getting closer to retirement. But along the way, how to have a true respect for their financial resources that they have been so blessed to have.
Yeah, I guess my first thought is money is an important topic, and even in the church, it's important we talk about money because it hits so many people's lives. And I think that one of the temptations with money is to make it an ultimate thing as opposed to an important thing. And so one way that I always counsel people, and actually our lead pastor says this a lot, is be careful of what you make the ultimate thing in your life because it has a lot of power over you. And so I think money is a means to an end, I think can be a means to a far greater end, and that is through using the wealth that's created to serve other people, or it's, obviously nothing wrong with a comfortable lifestyle, of course, but let not money become the ultimate thing in life. There's so much more, but let money serve a higher purpose in your life, whatever that might look like in relationship to a person, and maybe they're figuring out their spiritual life.
Well, I'm sure people have a lot more questions about that too, because wisdom always creates even more questions sometimes. But we are so grateful that you came on the show. Thank you for celebrating this with us, and we really look forward to possibly having you back, or even Christy back in the future.
Pleasure to be here.
But thank you so much. And please stay tuned. We're going to be having some final comments for the rest of the show. Ways to love your money. Again, I'm Elisabeth Dawson, and if you have any questions for Pastor Erik, please by all means give us a call at 619-640-2622, and we can put you in contact with them. All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back.